One of the biggest problems that investors have to deal with in the stock market is dealing with fear and greed. The fear that we will lose something, or the greed that we want more and more and more. If that is something that is interesting to you, stay tuned. I have some answers for you. Before I start on this video, I want to remind you that I have a free workshop that is available to you by clicking on the link in the description box below this video. It's about 90 minutes long. I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm just trying to offer you some insight and different ways that I think, and to help you possibly think in different ways yourself. The coverage includes a lot of different areas. Of course, I talk about the financial markets in general and a little bit about the stock market itself. I also cover sports. I'm a big fan of sports. Music. I've been playing music since I was very young. And I also talk about professional and personal relationships. The goal of this workshop is to help you to think in either new or different ways, as well as for you to get to know me and my style. The two biggest emotions that you will deal with, whether it's in the stock market, the financial markets, or just in life, is fear and greed. But it seems to get extra strong when we're dealing with the stock market. The first one is fear. The problem is, I'm afraid I will lose. We don't get into investing to lose. The idea is to invest in something or trade in something where you will see a profit. If we didn't think that was possible, we wouldn't even consider this as an alternative for us. So you're afraid that you'll not only lose new money, so money that you're just putting into the market right now. You might have just opened up a brokerage account and you have a certain amount in that account, and you have a fear that that money's going to go away and you're going to make silly decisions or stupid decisions, and the money that was there suddenly isn't there anymore. Another fear that people often have is past profits. A lot of times people spend their whole lives building up a nest egg. It might be in a retirement account, or it might be a portfolio that you have built or maybe even inherited from somebody else. You're seeing some really nice long-term gains. And if the market really turns and starts to go in the other direction, will you still be able to retire? How much of a loss can you suffer before things in your life will have to change? Maybe you're already retired, and this is a real concern of yours because you want to be able to stay retired. The solution is there are ways to control or even eliminate risk. In life, we have insurance to cover our house, our health, our home, our car. There are different types of insurance that you can implement in the stock market, and I teach about those things in the classes that I offer. Sometimes you may just limit risk or control it, or think of it as a deductible, where you'll have a little bit of an initial loss, maybe 5 to 10%, to keep that insurance from costing too much. You go ahead and say, all right, I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of my profits, but I want to insure the major portion of those profits, or I want to insure the major portion of the funds that I'm exposing to the market. There are also opportunities where you can eliminate risk, where it's a one-to-one relationship, where for every dollar you lose, your insurance goes up by that same amount. But this can also bite into your returns because that's more expensive. Some investors don't know that they have this option available to them. Another problem is I'm afraid of missing an opportunity. All these people that are in the cryptocurrencies, I should have got in when it was $8 for Bitcoin. Now it's up to 50,000. Now it's down to 30,000. Well, if I got in at $8, I would still be sitting pretty. A lot of people who got in at the bottom, who didn't get out when it went over 50, who thought, certainly we're going to 100. A lot of those people may really be going through a lot of emotions. They may have fear. They're still seeing a profit, but they've seen a lot of their profit erode away. Other people are saying, wow, I missed that train. There was a time when you could get Apple for $7 a share. Now, they weren't the darling company that they are now, They were kind of treated like the red-headed stepchild compared to Microsoft and Cisco and other big high-tech companies. But Apple was at a very low price at one time. They weren't the high flyer that they are now. The same thing is true with Amazon. A lot of these stocks had rather humble beginnings. We hear about them now, but people think, well, it's kind of too late. I've missed that opportunity. The nice thing about the market is there are opportunities every day if you just know where to look. Now, I'm not talking about gangbuster, overnight, gonna be a millionaire types of opportunities. The stock market has more opportunities than anybody will ever be able to take advantage of. Some of these are pretty simple, but they're also time-tested. These are strategies that people have used for a very long time, and if they're implemented the right way, you can enjoy consistent success. A lot of people ask me, why aren't you involved in cryptocurrencies? Personally, I really believe in the technology. I think it's wonderful. I've done a lot of research about the technology itself. I'm just afraid with prices going all over the place the way they are now, I'm seeing a lot of the same types of things that I saw back in 2000 in the bubble with the dot-com boom and bust. I hope I'm wrong. I don't want anybody to lose money. I hope people become instant millionaires. But if you went through that 21 years ago and you start seeing the same things happening right now, there are a lot of parallels between the two. What I've decided to do is focus on things that will consistently give you returns over a longer period of time. They may not be as flashy. It may not be as interesting to talk about with your friends. You may not be able to brag about it all that much, but over the long term, you will see consistent success. Another emotion that we have to deal with is greed. The problem is, I want more. If we have $100, we want $200. If we have $1,000, we want $10,000. You know how this whole story goes. If I have one car, I want 5 cars. We have that programmed into us because we're competitive by nature. We want to excel. We want to achieve. We want to compete against other people. We want to outdo what we've done in the past. If I go out golfing right now and I consistently shoot at par, wouldn't it be better if you could get just a little bit better and maybe consistently shoot under par? We were designed like that. So that isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's when that becomes the driving force behind you. You just want more and more and more, even if it involves taking risks that you shouldn't be taking, hurting people, and doing things that you shouldn't be doing. One of the greatest competitions that we've experienced throughout history is the songwriting competition between John Lennon and Paul McCartney. They were constantly trying to outdo each other, and we were the benefit of that. John would write a song, and then Paul would try to outdo him, and then Paul would come up with something, and then John would try to outdo him. And they went back and forth, and it was a competition where not only they grew as musicians, but the world was given this wonderful music that we still have available to us. And there are lots of other examples where you get involved with either another person or some type of activity where it makes you better by doing better. The solution is, and this is going to seem completely backwards to most of you who listen to this, if you want to have more, first you give. And that doesn't make any sense. How am I going to get more if I give? It's almost like there's a universal law that if you give first, you not only will get that back, quite often you'll get even more than that back. We can do that not just with money, but with our time, with our knowledge, with our emotions, with our efforts that we put into other people or other things. If you want to become really good at something, what do you have to do first? Give. You have to go to school. You have to sacrifice your time. You have to do things that you really don't want to do. And you have to learn things that maybe you don't really see are important at that time, but you're giving of yourself to develop that skill. Then later on, you get to reap the benefits of that. The same thing is true with money. If you want more money, first you give. I've just seen this as a universal truth, and I've seen it in my own life, and I've seen it in other people's lives as well. It may not be exactly the same way. If we give $100, we're not going to get $10,000 back, but you might have an opportunity that you didn't have before. You might have grace or forgiveness or some kind of a good thing that can happen in your life. You're given that instead of actual money. If somebody was to ask me, would you like me to give you $1 million or teach you how you can make $1 million or more, which one would you choose? Personally, I would choose the latter. I would rather have the skill because $1 million, any amount of money can come and go, but the skill can remain with you as long as you're living. And then that skill, you can teach it to other people. So not only are you benefiting from that, other people are benefiting from that as well. So this can include your time. We might be able to replace money in our life. If you lose money or if you don't have money, it's a lot easier to get the money back somehow, some way, either legally or illegally if you resort to such things. But one of the things we can't replace is time. Once it's gone, and we never get that back. We only have so much time in our lives. If you're willing to give your time to other people, to develop a skill, or to do something, you'll get much more than that in return. The idea is financial freedom. If you work really hard right now, then in the future, you don't have to work as hard, but you get to enjoy the benefits of giving up your time in the past. Also, dedication. A lot of people really want to be rich. It'd be nice if we didn't have any debt and we could do what we wanted to do. We could go where we wanted to go, but you have to be dedicated to it. And a lot of people just don't have that. They think they are at the beginning, and they watch a few videos, or they read some books, or they go to some kind of webinar or seminar, and they get all rah-rah about it. But that's just your emotions talking to you, and emotions go away. You're not really dedicated to developing a skill. But that's one way to overcome greed, is dedicate yourself to something, realizing this is not going to be easy. I'm going to have to sacrifice. I'm going to have to do some things I don't want to do. And then when you get to the point where you experience some success, instead of saying, give me more, now you can sit back and say, wow, I really appreciate what I've been able to achieve. And then being teachable. I've spent my career being a teacher of one type or another, and I've taught all ages. The students, quite often, that are the most difficult to teach are the ones that think they already know everything. The real students will realize the more they learn, the more they don't know. That can be a source of pride, thinking that you know it all. Now, it's one thing to be confident in what you do, and that is completely different than pride. If you watch any documentaries or you read any books, what is the number one cardinal sin? Pride. It's thinking that you have it all figured out. Don't need anybody or anything else in your life, and you can just do things the way you want to do them. Now, there is a healthy part to that, and that's called confidence. The idea is to be teachable. Do you have that thirst for knowledge? If you have an hour or 2 hours of free time, do you want to just kick back and watch some brainless movie? Or do you want to spend that time reading a book? Or maybe watching a documentary? Or listening to somebody who really knows what they're talking about? Think about that sometime. Now, we do need times just to chill. I'm not dismissing that. If that becomes what we really want, we might lose that, and we may never gain what we really want in the future. That's a principle that Jesus taught. If you want to save your life, lose it. Those who are willing to lose their life will save it. And that is very, very true. If you want to give up something right now in order to have things better in the future, you have to give up that free time or watching a movie or just kicking back and doing nothing. You have to give that up in order to have something better in the future. Then developing a realistic plan. Now, this sounds really cheeky and really simple, and it's like duh. But you would be surprised of how difficult this can be for people. What do I do? How do I get involved in the stock market? How much money should I put in? How many investments should I have? What kind of strategies should I use? This comes from developing a realistic plan. Setting up things that you know and understand, trying things out, and then learning from your mistakes. It all sounds very straightforward and very simple, but when you're in the heat of the battle and when you've got real money on the line, that realistic plan often just goes flying right out the window. How are you going to handle that? How are you going to perform under pressure? And then learning a skill. There is a learning curve when it comes to the stock market. There are terms that you may not know. There are concepts that you may not understand. There is technology that you may not know how to work. So you have to take some time to learn these things. Learning a skill also goes beyond just having knowledge. You have to develop the maturity to go with that knowledge, and then from there you end up developing a skill. So the goal is to remove as much emotion as possible. How do we overcome fear and greed? We do things that get rid of fear and greed. So all the time, what we can do is have more and more education. That means you're teachable. That means you don't say, I've got it all figured out. I don't need to learn anymore. And sometimes you can share what you know with other people. I'm a real big fan of history, but I'm constantly learning new things. Things that I didn't know a year ago, I now know. And things I haven't learned yet, I will discover in the future. There are things about the stock market. I teach classes on these things, and there are still things that I learn all the time. It never ends. That's what can be really exciting about this whole process. And support. Do you have within yourself the ability to stick to what you're doing? Or do you have a group of people around you? Or are you involved in some kind of program that will help you out if you have questions, if you have problems, if there's something that you just don't understand? Can you work with somebody, not so that they tell you what to do, but so that they help you to develop the skill? And then practice, practice, practice. There's no shortcuts when it comes to the stock market, just like in real life. First, you start off by not being very good, and if you do enjoy some success, that's usually just luck. I'm talking about consistent, week after week, month after month, year after year success. I'm not saying you won't have losses. There will be times when you have to just say, okay, this one just did not work out. But over the long term, you will enjoy a great deal of success. That comes by practicing. Even the great athletes, when they're not playing, they will still practice. So just because you're actually involved doesn't mean you stop the practice. I've also been a musician for most of my life, but when I'm not playing, I still practice. There are still new things to learn. There are still new challenges that I haven't been able to overcome yet. The idea is to never stop trying to improve. And then developing a plan that works for you. Each person's plan will be a little bit different. We have the average everyday life where you grow up, you go to school, then you may go to university. After university, or maybe during university, you get married, you have a family, you build a career, you work until your 60s and you retire. That's the typical plan for a lot of people. Does that plan work for you? Or do you want that plan to be able to work at its fullest capacity? That may mean that your plan is a little bit different than somebody else's. The plans that I have may vary from the plans that you have. We all have different goals and aspirations in our lives. So the idea is to develop something that works for you. Instead of getting into a stock market program where you're just learning what somebody else is doing and trying to develop their skill and their thinking ways, where you're trying to input their thought processes and make them into yours, how about just developing your own skills? And then it's more tailor-made to who you are, and now you have more control over that. And instead of being worried about the greed, now you're just focusing on getting better and better and better at what you do. So thank you very much. I really appreciate you taking the time to watch this video. Please click on the like or dislike button below. Please leave any comments. I really like feedback. Then consider subscribing to this channel by clicking on that little bell at the bottom, and you'll be notified as I post new videos. And then, as I said at the beginning of this video, there is a workshop that you can attend. Or I have the SPX Investing blog, which is at spxinvestingblog.com, where I have articles that are pretty much carbon copies of these videos, but they're written rather than hearing me by watching a video. So thank you very much, and I will see you in the next video.